Welcome to the first episode of the 2025-2026 Community School Impact Show. I'm your host, Ada Carter, the AACPS Director of Community Schools. I'm fortunate to get to oversee the implementation of the community school strategy in the 47 schools that are now designated community schools. This year on the Impact Show, we'll be highlighting the positive impact that the investment in community schools continues to make across Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Our first guest is Ms. Shauna King from King Professional Development Services. Ms. King has been working closely with one of our community schools, Frank Hebron Harmon Elementary School, providing professional development to staff and helping strengthen relationships across the school community. This work is happening through the lens of community schools where funding and focus on people make it possible to invest in the kind of deep training that shifts culture. Ms. King, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So you've been working with Frank Hebron Harmon, now going into your second year, right?
Absolutely.
So I would love to know a little bit about how you really got into that work and for you to tell us what drew you to support this school community.
Well, as someone who's been working with Anne Arundel County Public Schools for a while, I've had relationships with the principal, Ms. Morton, and even the community school coordinator, Ms. Tack, previously. So when they called me, it was an easy yes.
All right.
I already knew their spirit. I knew specifically their passion and positivity around working with children, and that aligns with the work that I do. So when they called last year, I said absolutely to be able to support the work that they do. And it's been wonderful to, every time I go, you can just feel the spirit in the building of what they believe about children and the difference that they know that they can make.
Absolutely. So relationships was the foundation for getting that work started. It's not surprising.
Absolutely. It's really the goal for most things. That's really the genesis of a lot of the work, even in schools. It starts with relationships, so the fact that I teach about relationships, it completely aligns.
Absolutely. Okay, so from your perspective, how does the professional development that you lead strengthen the connections between staff, families, and the broader school community?
So in specifically this school in Frank Hebron Harmon, what we like to do is we focus on the power that the adults have. We do know that we are here for the children, but we're talking about creating what I'll call soil that children can learn and grow, and that's what the culture is. And when we go to offer professional development, the teachers get to learn together. But what I like to do specifically is, for example, they're focusing on kindness last year. There was a month where they were focusing on kindness. When we went in and did professional development, we could talk about students first, but we talked about just the connection between the staff. And we talked about the power of our words. We talked about what that means, just colleague to colleague first. Because anytime you want to implement something, if you felt it, if you've been through it, it's a lot easier for you to then say how that's going to make a difference with the students and with the families. And so we've done a couple of activities in our professional development. And when staff learn together, it helps them to align their values. It helps them to see the bigger picture outside of just them. So professional development is not about me as the person facilitating the training. It's about the experience that the teachers have to bring their values, bring their alignment, and how that impacts student learning together.
That's interesting. So then can you share with us what has really been the biggest shift that you've seen in the staff and in their practice or mindset as a result of the training that you've brought to Frank Hebron Harmon?
So Frank Hebron Harmon is an amazing school, already amazing school. One of the shifts that I think is beginning to happen, or I know is happening, is they have teachers who've been there for many years, 20 plus years, and then they have some newer teachers too, all wonderful in their own right. And there's something around efficacy, we call it, where as a teacher, I can feel like I'm making a difference. But what research demonstrates is, yes, it's important that I make a difference, but what really makes a difference is when we know we make a difference. And so the mindset shift that aligns with administration and the community schools model, which talks about it's not just one person. I'm doing something, you're doing something, they're doing something.
Right.
And when we all know that collectively we work together, that mindset shift impacts student learning. It impacts belonging. It makes kids belong, grow, and succeed.
Right. And it's a noticeable, it's a tangible even difference that you can not only sense, but you feel, and it's easily demonstrated. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Because it's one thing to be doing something by yourself.
Right.
But when you walk into a school, and see, that's where it makes a difference for families.
Mm-hmm.
When they can walk into a school and know it's not just, okay, I'm talking to the third grade teacher today,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm just talking to the principal, but that when the staff are on the same page, they become part of the team. They know that they are working together and we are in this together has to be exemplified throughout the entire school. And families can feel that
Mm-hmm.
when everybody is on the same page, and that they then are easily can decide to be a part of that. And that's what we want them to be able to do as well. It's not the school over here,
Mm-hmm.
the family over here.
Mm-hmm.
It's everybody working together. And so that level of what's called collective efficacy is super important.
So it sounds like you guys are really starting to breed a culture of shifts that are making some positive impacts at Frank Hebron Harmon. I'm wondering if you can share with us a specific story around a staff member or a group that applied some of the things that they've learned in a way that really impacted students or families.
Absolutely. So one of the things I do, professional development is one thing, but when you pair professional development with coaching is really where the transformation happens. So what I've been able to do with Frank Hebron Harmon is do professional development and then follow up with coaching, with small groups, with teams, with even individual teachers. And so what they've heard in the professional development, they then can say in the smaller group, this is how this applies with my student or when I'm connected with the parent. And I can tell you, after we did the first professional development, when I went for our team small group coaching, it was probably the next week, teachers were immediately able to give me concrete ways where they had connected with students. They were able to tell me specifically how they had reached out to parents, and using some of the exact language that we had just done in the professional development the week before made a difference with them. And that's why the professional development has to be purposeful, but it's got to be practical. Mm-hmm. What am I going to do differently? What am I going to implement immediately? And so as a facilitator, it was wonderful to see how teachers would come into and they say, I remember last week. I remember when we did this, and this is what I did. And that is exactly what happened the following week after the professional development when we started.
I'm so curious to know more about how you actually made this happen. I mean, is this something that was done like with a leadership team that then you supported them putting into practice, that they each were mobilized into taking the coaching and then they followed up with wanting to see these things happen? Or did you lead and guide all of this work? Like, how did you actually mobilize this work?
So I would love to take complete credit for this,
okay.
But I'm going to tell you, Ms. Morton and Ms. Tack, the community school coordinator and the principal over there, are a rock star team.
Okay.
So yes, I go in, and anytime I work with a school, we meet first, whether it's virtually or in person, whichever one they choose. But they already had ideas.
Okay.
So once we did the first professional development, they were like, okay, now this is what we're going to do. And we scheduled the coaching. And so after that, we stayed in contact and said, now what we're going to do next. And we've worked with small group teams. We've worked with the instructional team. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of built on things, kind of flying the plane in flight. But this year, it's different. This year, after we saw, the response from the staff, because the staff has to be a part of this decision. Mm-hmm. It's one thing for leaders to say, this is what staff need. It's something else to say when the staff says, this is what staff want. Mm-hmm. So after the very first professional development, Ms. Tack collected feedback. And many folks said, yes, we would like to go deeper. We would like to go further. And so with that coming together, we've created a plan for this year to make sure that there is a mixture of working with the staff, working with the families as well. I was just there for back to school night last week. And then still working with smaller groups too. Because that's how you really get the transformation. When it's not just a one-time mm-hmm. event, where even if it's great, where someone has said something that was impactful, but it can really begin to marinate and say, what can I do? What am I going to do differently? How can I work together as a team? So everybody begins to speak the same language and have those shared values.
So you really have become part of the school community.
So I'm part of the family over there. I'm now I won't even say a distant cousin. Yes, I am, and I absolutely love it.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. They're a wonderful school to work with.
After the break that we'll have here, we'll hear from Mary Moss Academy, where staff are using community school supports to embrace the Kids at Hope framework, reshaping school culture so every child is seen as capable of success. Next, we're joined by Katie Barish, Assistant Principal, and Cynthia Brooks Powell, Special Education Department Chair, who have been leading the way with the Kids at Hope framework at Mary Moss at J. Albert Adams Academy. I would love to know what Kids at Hope means to you and how does it shape the way staff approaches their work with students?
Sure. So Kids at Hope for me it's really our future. In education, we are primed and conditioned to learn all about our students before they step foot and cross the threshold into our building, into our classroom. And fortunately and unfortunately, we're taught to pay attention to these risk factors. These are our red zone kids. These are our students that are at risk. Rick Miller and Kids at Hope has sort of reshifted this philosophy that instead of seeing our kids at risk, let's take a moment and see them at hope. That all students are capable of success no matter what.
That's right.
Without exception, that's right. So when you think about the student that has all of these barriers stacked up against them, how many of those are actually on that student and that student's responsibility? Oftentimes it's none. They can't control their living situations. They can't control, the movement that they're doing about the community or multiple communities. So it is our job when we meet our new students to see them at hope.
Absolutely. And Cynthia, I just love the way that she immediately jumped in and co-signed with Katie, and that's right, no exception.
That's right.
But Cynthia, can you share a little bit with us about how embracing that Kids at Hope framework changed the culture of your school and for both staff and students?
Sure. Well, as Katie said, we have always seen kids in different lights in the past, right? And so when we see a student that they have a lot of factors that may be against them, we may see them as at risk. So we do have to change that framework and look at them as at hope. And so this allows for us to now look at the universal truths and start to apply them to our kids and their situations. To believe that all students are capable of success, no exceptions. To connect with them, and the connections that we make are connections between the students and meaningful adults that have sustainable relationships with them, and they're caring. So that gives them hope as well, because someone cares about them and what they're going to do in their lives. And then time travel. Time travel is a really big one, because that makes them look at success going towards the future, whether that's the immediate future or down the line. And we look at, time traveling as far as their home and their family, their hobbies and their careers, their education, and then of course looking at their involvement in the community. And it allows for them to be exposed to a lot of things that they may not know about, and now say, wait a minute, this is something that I can do, that I can be involved in, and that time traveling allows for them to build more hope. So it's a whole encompassing thing that when we think that way and help them think that way, they can see the future. They can see something else besides their immediate situation.
I love the idea of time traveling and just imagining just amazing things for themselves in their future.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, Katie, back to you. Could you share maybe an example of how staff development specifically around Kids at Hope has directly influenced a student's success somehow?
Sure. So when I think of our universal truths, I think back to Arundel County Public Schools and just how perfectly the believe, connect, and time travel aligns with our philosophy of belong, grow, and succeed. So a lot of times when staff hears, we're going to do this or we're going to focus on that, it's one more thing added to my plate. It's not. It's reshifting a little bit of the language to see how these two philosophies really sync up. And one of the more recent, I would say within the last 2 years that we've done is even when we're interviewing our candidates to come into the building, it begins there. We want to make sure that all of our staff have this philosophy that all students can be successful without exception. So our final question, and my team would stamp that it is my favorite question, would be, what do you believe about all students and all children, and how do you show it? And they may not say the Kids at Hope pledge word for word, but they should allude that all students have the capacity to be successful. So just that one little step helps us weed out who is the right person for that position. And then really that just helps us move forward because we know we've got the right people in the door.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that as an interview question, to make sure that they share that belief that all kids can succeed. I love that. I'm sorry, that just took me aback a little bit. I love that. Okay, so Cynthia, I've got
Yes.
another question for you.
Okay.
Why do you believe professional development like this is an investment not just in staff, but in families and the community as a whole?
Mm-hmm. So I know that I like to feel that what I'm doing in my workplace is impacting, is making a difference. I think most of us went into this field because of that, right? So as a staff, this type of a I don't want to say program because it's not a program, it's a philosophy. This allows the mindset to be different and understanding that what I am doing, I am impacting children. I am impacting them and showing them other things, getting them to believe in themselves, getting them to connect to us and others and learn how to connect with others outside of themselves, because that's a learned thing, to learn to connect. When you've had so many traumas and things in your life, you've become kind of hard and stoic, right? So when these types of professional developments occur, that teaches the staff how to change their way of approaching children, then that goes out to the kids and they learn how to deal with people and how to look at their situations. And that, of course, impacts their family, because now they take that back home to their moms, dads, uncles, cousins, whoever, grandma, and they start to say, well, wait a minute, I do believe that you can be successful, no exceptions. And then it also comes back to them, because a lot of times it's a mindset. There are things that are difficult, but there are things out there that you can do that can give you other exposures and other changes in your life. It might be little steps, but it's the mindset, it's the framework. So this type of a PD, it really allowed for us to understand that you have to look at your situation from the positive lens, see what you can change, because that's where hope comes from. Because otherwise you're hopeless. So I think we all come from the standpoint of wanting to help anyone that we come in contact have hope. And so the kids get that from us, and it goes out to their families, and it goes out into the communities. That's why it's so important to have those destinations of the community involvement as well. That's really big for this program.
That's amazing.
And then we were talking actually this morning about a student that we have now that if we were to unpack his history, his attendance, his family struggles, you would never believe that he is the young man that he is now. And seeing himself an entrepreneur in the making, very powerful messages, suicide awareness, making sure that your voice matters. The student that I met in 6th, 7th grade to the student ambassador that he has become. And the biggest success for him is that he is now coming to school almost every day. I could have probably count on 2 hands the number of days he attended during a marking period in years past. But that switch has finally clicked for him, and he is now willing and eager to help those around him. And the hope that you see in him and how he presents and how he talks and how he just holds on to these messages from traumas and traumatic experiences that have directly impacted his story. It could have gone in a couple of different ways, and he chose hope.
And even if he knows that there are some situations with his family that may be difficult, he sees himself a little bit differently now, because sometimes children see their situation and they think that's going to be me, that I can't make any changes. And they carry that storyline across. Wherein this student now sees something different for himself. So he's now looking down the line, even if it's next week, which has now become, how many weeks has it been now?
Six, 7?
He's, it was one day, then it was a couple of days, couple of weeks. Now we're on a roll, and we're almost at the end of the first marking period, right? And that's definitely a different mindset than what we've seen in the past. So we're just carrying it on and supporting that and giving him all the nurturing that he needs to continue in that direction.
Well, you guys are definitely, I think, giving an advertisement to the benefits of the mindset of the Kids at Hope framework and just the conditions that it brings to the staff, to the students, to the community, the families, and all the potential that it brings. And so I really appreciate you guys sharing your experience with it. And I would like to believe that in being in a community school, that it's amplifying the opportunity from the professional learning that you're able to be part of, and just the conditions that are able to be provided. Coming up after the break, we will head to Tyler Heights Elementary, where family navigators, bilingual specialists, and community liaisons are talking with us about how they have made possible communicating with parents and families and connecting with them in their home languages and building bridges of trust with schools. For our final segment, we are joined by Mari Fernandez, Family Navigator, along with Ana Taylor and Lorena Cabrera Torres, Bilingual Community Liaisons from Tyler Heights Elementary School. These positions exist because Tyler Heights is a community school where the resources and the identified needs have made it possible to invest in people who connect families and schools. Mari, could you please begin this segment by sharing with us how your role helps families feel more connected and supported at Tyler Heights Elementary School, and share with us a little bit about how, or more about like what the difference it makes when families can communicate in their home language about their child's education.
Hi, everybody. At Tyler, we have like around an enrollment of 406 each students. 93% are Hispanics. Also, these are important facts about our school. 95% are farm students and 64% are multilingual learners. So for me, as a former EDL and work classical languages for the past 16 years, it has helped me develop the ability to be effective communicating with diverse populations. And also in our school, we have about 45 partners, community partners that help us with the diapers that our community needs. For example, the walk the walk. We have also total health care that are a very, very great partner for us. And I help with the families to get the services that they need in the situation that they are going through at every day, every second in the school. We also have the Maryland Hall. So basically, to answer the question, as a family navigator, I make it a point to be present in each of the, let's say, pods or each of the scenarios that we have at school. In the cafeteria, lunch duty, for example, we have our monthly food distribution, so they are present and accessible to the families. So that will make the families feel that I am there and they can trust me, and that helps me build the relationship that they need as the community and family navigator that I am inside the school, because the family navigator is a trusted bridge between the families and the school and the students and the staff and also the partners in our community. So basically, me being a native Spanish speaker, it really helps me get to that next level more quick than if I were not, I think. So being able to speak the home language of the families really improve the family engagement in our school, because language builds trust, and also it demonstrates the cultural respect that we have for them as their family background.
I think most people would expect that if you can communicate in the language that a person or a family speaks, that it would be easier to build trust and to get to understanding of what a family needs and be able to support them more quickly. So I definitely can respect that you're able to support the needs of a family more quickly. So thank you for the work that you're doing with the community in Tyler Heights. For the group, could you guys maybe describe a time when your work helped a family overcome a barrier and become more engaged with the school? Any of you guys?
For example, we had a family last year when the STEM program and the Apex rolls in. A lot of those presentations are in English and in Spanish, but some of those families have difficulties with the terminology. So we sit down with them and we make sure they understand and we make sure they feel comfortable enough to be able to go through this process with their children.
Okay. Sounds good. Any other examples of a time you helped a family overcome a barrier?
¿Hay algún ejemplo que usted quiere compartir que con su ayuda
And become more engaged with the school?
alguna familia ha bajado esa barrera de poder, ¿cómo se dice? Poder
Sentirse más
más cómoda para hacer cosas con la escuela?
Pues sí, les ayudamos bastante nosotros a que ellas se sientan cómodas con nosotros porque las invitamos que vayan al community room. Ahí están siempre ayudándonos, los invitamos como voluntarios y después ellas van teniendo más confianza con nosotros.
Yes, we invite them to be part of our community and come into the community room as volunteers and share with us. And so they become a little bit more involved with the community schools as well.
And I have to tell you, I've seen it firsthand, and I really have enjoyed getting to see that work at Tyler Heights and how involved the parents are and the family members, not even just parents, how involved the family members are in volunteering regularly at Tyler Heights and how welcome and engaged that they are and supportive that they are in supporting the school. So I think the language piece of it makes people feel welcome because they can communicate and they know how they can be helpful and supportive. So thank you for lifting that up.
If I may share, like also as a family navigator, we help our parents and specifically students with special ed needs to help the parent understand what are the systems and the way that our system works. For example, this student receive like a protection of an IEP or a 504 if they need that type of service.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right, Anna, I want to come back to you with the question now.
Yes.
So how do translation interpretation services strengthen trust between families and schools, in your opinion?
Piggybacking from your comment earlier, I really do feel that families can understand the information and express themselves. They feel more comfortable doing so in their own language. And so when they see somebody that looks like them, that speaks like them, that has a similar face per se, you know, they feel more comfortable speaking to you without the fear of judgment, without misunderstanding, knowing that what their questions are will be understood and answered in a way that they also understand.
Wow. So that's, I really appreciate you just sharing that candidly. I really do. So for my last question, I want to bring it back to you, and I'm going to again ask this question in English, but I do appreciate the response in Spanish. What message, Lorena, would you like to share with other schools or leaders about why investing in community school family navigators and community liaisons, especially bilingual community liaisons, is essential for student success?
Me gustaría decirles a todas las escuelas que son comunitarias que trabajemos en equipo, porque eso hace que nosotros podamos trabajar bien. Todos estamos trabajando para un solo lugar, porque a veces no se comunica uno con las personas, porque a veces una dice una cosa, otra dice otra, entonces no hay comunicación. Pero si trabajamos en equipo, sí vamos a estar bien.
I wanted to tell everybody that working in community schools, you want to find partners who can communicate with you and you can work together. Whereas if you don't find that team that can, you know, work together and really work as one, it's a little bit more difficult to kind of go through those phases.
So truly making partnerships, right?
Truly making partnerships, not just with outside folks, but also within your organization.
Absolutely.
It makes a big difference.
And I know that Tyler Heights is really doing that work. And so I really am glad that you guys came out today. I'm so proud of the work you guys are doing at Tyler Heights. I really am getting to know you guys. And thank you for tuning in as we begin another year of celebrating the positive difference community schools are making here at AACPS. We look forward to bringing you more stories in the episodes ahead. Thank you.